whether it's a partnership, a program, something about how your product has effectively changed the way someone trains or made a measurable impact in the way people train?
So we're effectively a B2B company, and a lot of our experiences are through those of our customers. From our vantage point, we get to see a lot of companies, both startups and large companies, that are looking to say, well, this is something that we've been doing in the analog space for a long time, and we now want to do it digital. And we've tried to do it on our own, or we're trying to do it on our own, but there's a fair amount of challenges associated with that. So the most interesting one that comes to my mind is a company that is one of our customers that's building training programs for kids playing lacrosse. So these guys know everything about lacrosse training. They've run the lacrosse camps. They've coached all sorts of players of all kind of abilities, et cetera. When it comes to technology, it's a new space for them, right? So they can hire like app developers and designers and things like that. But when it comes to artificial intelligence, to figure out when a person's doing a right throw and a catch and a left throw and a catch, and if they're saying to them something like, do 5 right throws, stop, do 2 lefts, then do a right, that stuff is just something that takes a lot of their time and a lot of their attention. And it just has to work because it's literally 12, 13-year-old kids who will just throw it away if it doesn't work right the first time. Words like calibration and all those things are alien. You can't say those things. Because I think the difference with like the younger kids especially is that they just expect it to work. They expect it to be engaging. They expect the user experience to do exactly what it's supposed to do. They're not as forgiving as we are of technology. So with them, we were able to put together routines that allowed the trainer to say specific routines for each type of kid. On the back end, on the machine learning side, what we were doing was that we had built an individual motion profile for every single person on the training plan.
Wow.
So that I think I overheard a question about how to tailor to different people of different shapes and sizes. So that motion profile basically had a base layer, and then on top of it, as you send it more data, it got more and more smart about how the person threw, how they threw. For example, how did they do a right throw in the morning versus how they did it in the afternoon, and things like that.
So now there are a bunch of teenage lacrosse players that are much better because of you, right?
Well, I'd like to hope so. I'd like to say one last thing before we move on. There's a ton of time that kids spend outside of training. So like they will basically just take the ball and they'll throw it at the wall and they'll keep doing that over and over again. So one of the things that we learned through this program is that there was a way to capture and engage users outside the specific 20 minutes or 2 hours of training. And we found that that was something that led to significantly higher engagement rates as opposed to like other training programs.
Mm-hmm. Great. What about you, Meg or Fabrizio? Other examples of partnerships or programs that you've engaged in that have demonstrated real change behavior in training?
I have an example from our work with the elite team system where we worked with MLS, Major League Soccer. They all had our system, and in the beginning, we were kind of asking these trainers, what did they want from the system as we were building it, and trying to give them the tools that they really wanted. And interestingly, the trainers have been doing their jobs for a long time, and they have a gut feel that something's not right, or somebody is overtrained and they need some rest, or they need to be pulled from the practice. And so they were asking us, can you give me data I can use to show the coach that this is not just my hunch, but there's data that backs me up. And so we heard that again and again across the board from these trainers. And so we were able to give them this data, and then it was just something that coaches could then accept, and they, even though it's a hassle to pull your player from practice because you're trying to practice plays and tactical stuff, these things in the end change the way that they're considering this information. And it is, I think, one of the key things to preventing injury then, because when somebody's had enough, they do need a different regimen, or they need to go in a couple days of rest, and you can see that in the data. Mm-hmm. So that's an important thing.
Sure.
Yeah, and a different example, for example, is related to the fact that we are very interested in having people that are using experiences for a long term, so that are sticking with these experiences. And so in this respect, of course, frictionless and seamless of use are very important. Also, it's important to have meaningful experience, so something that changes the way in which you exercise. Now, for example, on treadmill, so on our equipment that are connected equipment, so that exploit the capability of the, let's say, IoT world more in general, we give the possibility, for example, to repeat what you have done outdoor. So you are using your own outdoor app, Runkeeper, MyFitness, whatever, and you have the possibility when you exercise on a specific treadmill to be recognized, and so the treadmill proposes you if you want to repeat the experience that you have done outdoor. And so this is something quite new, and people are quite surprised, so because they do not expect this, no?
Right.
And for example, in this show, we are presenting a new concept, a new feature, in which whatever kind of music you have on your portable device, on your mobile, you have the capability to have the treadmill to suggest you the right music in pace with the run that you are, with the speed that you are exercising on the equipment. So these are ways to change actually the way in which you have exercised and to create stickiness to this experience.
Right. It almost seems like magic in a way that,
Yeah,
oh my gosh,
exactly.
I wish that would
Exactly.
happen, and it
Exactly.
does. That's great.
Exactly.
Okay. So again, Fabrizio, I'll ask you first. It seems like wrist-worn activity trackers have become like the hot product in sports and fitness tech. I'm just curious, how do your products like break out of that mold of it's got to be on the wrist?
Yeah, of course, let's say, we have seen, let's say, wrist products since some years right now, no? And we seem that, we have seen that, let's say, these are experiences that even some are very successful, are not so sticky in the user behavior. So meaning that what we have seen is a very high level of, let's say, low level of adoption after 6 months.
Right.
So the rate of not usage of these devices is very high. And in my view, this is quite normal because we are simply trying to, so let's say these kind of devices are the answer, the first answer that came to the fact that we in terms of overall community, we were able to measure something new, no? And we found interesting measures of this, but of course, people are not sticky enough. And so in our view, actually, what we are doing, we are integrating many kind of these devices, major part of the devices, Fitbit or the other, let's say. But I personally believe that this is only part of the story. So we are working on this ecosystem in order to give the end user the possibility, let's say, to track and to get advantage of what they're using beyond the simple tracker. So whatever they're doing while they are sleeping or while they are simply walking, while they're exercising, of course. And in order to get an health overview of what they're doing and to provide meaningful information based on this. So, meaning the wearable is simply a component of this story.
Right, right. Just as your wrist is only
Yeah.
one part of your entire body. Yeah. Okay. What about you, Meg?
Yeah, I think for us, we have a couple of wrist devices which serve the purpose for the user, but we really look at this spectrum of elite athletes to consumers and people who want to move more during their daily lives to people who they're professionals and they need to perform. And so we're really creating not just wrist devices, but devices that work like a professional athlete can't wear a wrist device in their sport. So we have the wearables, and we also are offering choices, I think, for consumers who maybe wrist is not giving them the data that they're looking for. We have the wearable, so it's integrated into the garment, and we're taking the data on heart rate from the chest versus the wrist. So really it's looking at the whole spectrum of opportunities for to be connected and to get good information to help you train or be better or move more or whatever your goal is and whatever your situation is, giving you the right tools. So smart ball for the soccer player, it's just, it can go, technology doesn't just have to be on the wrist, you can spread it out over the body and you can put it into equipment, and we look at that whole spectrum.
So starting with the improving decision making, and then where does that input come
where
from?
does it need to be
Yeah.
for the use case?
Yeah, yeah. Ali?
So I think that it's very early days in the wearable tech space. So it's kind of like when cell phones came out and you can only call the people that were on the same network as you. or you could only text people when, you know, like in a certain country and other countries just forget about it. So I think that wearables on the wrist are like a natural thing where the first time we like if you go back and look at comic books and things like that, they've always got the watch which has all these fancy features and things like that. And a lot of this stuff I think initially just comes out of science fiction. I think that the more we see adoption of such product, you'll see the soccer ball and you'll see garments with all the sensors inside it. I think the good thing is that I think in a couple of years we're going to have sensors like embedded into our clothing and things like that. So it's not like I'm going to be putting on my sensor because I'm going to the gym, or I'm going to put on this sensor because I'm going to go to the office.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be like I'm just going to put my shirt on the way I put it on, and it's going to give me data that is useful to me, and hopefully not just data but insightful data.
Right.
So that's I
Right.
think is going to happen.
Yeah, 2 sessions ago, the woman, I think Liz, had said that there was this quote that she heard about moving from wearable to forgettable. And I think that that's what you're talking
Yeah.
about. So you don't have to think about, I need to put my wearable device on. It's just part of what you're already putting on or what you're
Exactly.
already doing. Great. Meg, you talked a little bit already about how trainers have used your data. And I just wanted to talk a little bit more about how trainers and coaches and other, what I would call like maybe gatekeepers or, you know, stakeholders in the user experience, how they impact adoption. So can you talk a little bit more about how have you engaged these kinds of folks?
Yeah, we've included trainers and coaches in a couple different ways in our work. When we go to consumer, we try to get the best knowledge from the best trainers and coaches and embed that in our consumer system so the consumer gets that experience, but it's really baked into the app or the device. So they're getting professional coaching, but it's, you know, at their own time and pace and self-administered. So we bring in great coaches to help us with that, and we have our own, you know, labs that we work with as well. So that's one way. The other way is in a coached environment, like a professional sports team or Corva coaching, which we work with a Smart Ball. It really provides. It's interesting how much value it brings to coaches in their job. So it's not taking their place, but it's enabling them and validating their approaches. So I know with Corva, we had this one situation where they were trying to teach a new technique to a kid. And the coach was saying, you know, these kids, they don't necessarily believe what I'm teaching them is right, or that it's going to produce the result that I say it's going to produce, because they're probably teenage boys. So, but anyway, they'll give them a new technique, and surely it'll feel awkward at first. But if they can do it using the Smart Ball, and they can show them, hey, your speed is you know, this much faster, then it really validates and it makes their job easier, and for them it brings like another level of sophistication to their training. So I think it's important, you know, it's not replacing coaches, it actually makes their job easier, and we can use their expertise and embed it where they can't be there on the spot. So that's a couple things.
And so it strikes me there'd be a similar kind of perceived threat maybe with personal trainers and gym equipment. So can you talk, Fabrizio, about your experience, you know, working with personal trainers and engaging them and helping them understand the value that you're bringing to them?
Yeah, actually, let's say, so what we have seen is that at the beginning, maybe sometime, personal trainers or trainers can feel that we want to replace their role. Actually, they realize immediately that we are enhancing their role, meaning that we give them much more information, even giving them the possibility to follow users even when they are not close to them. And so, I mean, this enlarges the capability for professionals to provide insight, provide mentoring to end users. And our platform actually enables this because, say, we started being in touch with end users that are followed by service providers, so by clubs, by health clubs, and so on. So, I mean, this is the environment from which we started from.
Aline, I guess in the lacrosse example that you gave, that it was definitely working with the players as well as the coaches, right?
Yep, absolutely. So the lacrosse example being one, we've also got customers in the boxing space and other sports.
Okay.
So the trainer is absolutely important, and I think that the most important thing to remember is that a trainer is expensive. So you're going to get like an hour with the trainer at most, and sometimes even that you can't get because you just can't afford it. So all the other time of engagement within the app with the product is going to happen based on routines that the trainer is going to spell out for you. there's so far, like other than using a paper and clipboard, there's really no way to know if the kid or the athlete has done them or not. But because of kind of the modern technology that we're talking about, it's very easy for a coach to see who's done what, if they've done it at the right time, if they've done it with the right kind of technique. And then there's also the ability to kind of game the system. So if you kind of look at Strava and you look at why Strava is so popular, there's no training, there's no coach. It's just a way for people to say, there's a hill in my neighborhood, and these are grown like adults, right? On like $2,000 bikes, just going nuts on a hill because it lets them compete with each other on a leaderboard. So the same theory applies to boxing, to lacrosse, to all the other sports where the trainer is one kind of pillar of your overall program. It's also the community, and I think that technology weaves both of those in together really nicely.
Okay. So my next question has to do with adoption of products, and I'm always curious as to whether adoption happens easier or faster when you are enhancing what people are already doing, or whether you are giving them something new to do, introducing them to something entirely new and different, a totally new experience. Curious what your point of view might be, whether one is more effective than the other, or what you've learned between the two.
Should I go first? Sure. I think the adoption is the white elephant when it comes to wearables. If adoption on every wearable product that's in the market, every sensor-based product in the market was good, you'd see it on billboards all across Highway 101. The reality is that it's not, and I mean, part of the reason is because the technology is still fairly early stage. So we've seen Iron Man and we've seen all these movies, and we expect the technology to do all these crazy things. There is a bit of a catch-up, right? So even at conferences like this, a lot of people are like overplaying their product roadmap, and that's just the nature of the market. But the good thing is that it is improving steadily. So there are apps out there, like if you go and look at whatever particular sport you have, there are companies out there that are giving a much more engaging experience, whether it's running, whether it's lacrosse, whether it's basketball. I think that we're at a point now where just showing people data on an app doesn't cut it anymore. And I think that once, like 2016 is going to be a big year because we'll see more and more products and apps that actually give you some insight. So if you're doing, like, so for example, in our case, we've got a routine where the boxers punch in, right? Depending on what time of day it is and depending on kind of what routine they do, you can see massive shifts in the power that they're pushing through, which unless you're like a coach and you had the eye for it, you would not be able to tell. So things like that add tremendous value to people, and then they keep coming back.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to happen more and more,
right.
Which is going to drive engagement.
Sure. Meg, how about you?
I think adoption, it's probably a mixture, but I kind of, as a marketer, think it's easier when somebody has a goal to get better or they're looking for something to help them improve. And so they already kind of know what they want, and then you're giving them a solution to their problem. And that, is what most of our products, I think, are really geared towards in the consumer world. And then for Elite, that was kind of a different thing that, it's adoption there is more about the teams making the commitment, and then the players are kind of have to fall in line. But I think there's something new about using a ball that has a brain in it. Basically, like who would think about that? And it's more fun. It's kids love technology and apps in their phones, and so we're kind of meeting both things, helping them get better at something they're already doing, but giving them like a new and different experience in doing that. And that may be the best combination.
Right.
Yeah, of course, different people has different goals, different needs. So, I mean, we see that the capability to create experiences that go longer, that goes longer, are related to the capability to show people the capability to improve and to achieve their goal. And so the problem is that sometimes if you look, for example, people that are going to a gym, generally speaking, not always the goal is so clear. Maybe if you have to lose weight, okay, it's quite clear. But people go to the gym, and after a while, maybe they get boring, and so they stop the experience. But actually, they didn't realize that they were not able to, let's say, to express clearly the goal that they had in their mind. Mm-hmm. And so we try to help them in doing this and in showing improvement, because improvement, of course, give you capability to understand the reason why you are doing it, the reason why you are sweating every day, and so on. And so we see in this way also to have the capability to increase the adoption, increase the stickiness on these experiences.
Through that education process. Yeah. All right, I have one more question for the group, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So you want to be thinking about if you have a question while we're wrapping up here. Okay, and Meg, you kind of adjust this a little bit, so I'll come back to you and ask you about this. I want to contrast elite athletes and fitness enthusiasts versus mainstream customers. And what have you learned about addressing the needs and changing behaviors of those two different groups? Is it easier to get adoption and sustain change behavior with one group or the other?
Yeah. So I think consumers are probably the most challenging group, because we have this, like, the industry has this experience about people want some way to help them meet their goals, so they buy a device or they get in a program and then they fall off. So I think it's very hard to sustain that behavior change with consumers, and that's what we all need to be working on as an industry, to find that what is the better way to do that and to get engagement and continue it over time. Elites, elite athletes, somebody asked a question earlier about that, you get resistance, especially maybe from the older guys who feel like they can't generate the power or the speed of the younger guys, and although their experience counterbalances that. But yeah, you get resistance, but in the end, it's like they have to get on board because that's the way of the future. And so I don't think that's the hard part. I think it's the consumers and really cracking that thing about how do we get them to be engaged over time and stick with something and have a lifelong journey of, like, movement and fitness and health, and be with them on that journey.
What about you, Fabrizio, contrasting elite athletes or super engaged fitness enthusiasts versus just kind of the mainstream consumer you're talking about, the person that goes to the gym in January and then falls off? Like, sustaining adoption with either?
Yeah, this is a general challenge that we have, I think, as an industry, because as someone told before in one intervention before, probably we are capable to help the people that are already more aware of what they have, of what they need. So we have to try to engage and to involve even people that are not so interested, let's say. And so what we're trying to do is to create experiences that are, even in terms of gamification, so we are trying to take, let's say, or from the social side, of course, so having someone that is helping you, that is pushing you in doing this. So we're trying to use different mediator in order to engage a different kind of people.
I mean, the reason why I asked the question is because, I mean, at least from my personal experience, it's like, because I'm so engaged, like, I'll use a device for 6 weeks or whatever, and that's like, okay, I'm done. I've learned everything I want. What's next? What's new? And so I'm just kind of curious. It seems like, yes, even though people are more engaged, they might have a shorter attention span because they are so used to so much information. I don't know, Ali? What do you think?
I totally agree with you. I think that devices and products today need to learn and give insight continually. If you keep telling me the same thing over and over again, I'm gonna stop talking to you too, right? So, like, it's normal. It's not. People aren't doing anything wrong by putting something in the sock drawer because they know that they walk 5,000 steps a day. That's what they do on a good day, and then on a bad day they do, like, whatever, 500. So I think that as you see more and more devices that come out that are solely focused on the insight. There was a great comment in the last talk about segmentation. The insight will come with segmentation. So if, to your case, like the magic soccer ball, if you try to use the same soccer ball for every kind of ball sport, it wouldn't say anything other than the fact that the ball's moving, which is, again, once you know, it's not that relevant. But I think that with 2016, we'll see more and more products, apps that are focused on specific subsegments, on specific sports and specific training plans. So, like in the running case, for example, if people start getting a Couch to 5K plan and then they can actually follow up on that Couch to 5K plan, that's already like 90 days of engagement that has taken them from being on a couch to being a runner. And they're going to be much more sort of open to taking the next training plan and paying a fee for it next time.
Right.
So I think that's going to, I'm pretty excited about it, so hopefully. Yeah.
Cool. What questions do you all have? It's getting late in the day.
say, but I think you guys did an excellent job of covering the topic, so thank you very much.
All right, thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.